raise a question for you. Can we still Google? Our legal analyst, Greg Isaacs, is here. It's always good to see you.
Lori, it's good to be here.
What we're talking about today, the federal court ruling that Google has an illegal monopoly on internet searches. This is big. When you want to search something, what do you use? Of course, there's Google. So let's talk about why this is so huge.
Well, prosecutors, lawyers have dusted off an old law, the Sherman Antitrust Act, and we hear about it when we talk about the NCAA and NIL, and we've heard about it with Google. Monday, in a landmark ruling, a federal judge in Delaware ruled that Google had engaged in anti-competitive behavior and has violated Section 2 of the Sherman Antitrust Act by engaging in paying enormous amounts for default contracts for search engines, primarily with Apple computers and smartphones.
Well, you know, if this sounds a little bit familiar to you, something like this has happened before. It was a long time ago, 20 years ago in 2004 with Microsoft, and this had a huge impact on Microsoft. We rarely hear about them anymore.
Well, and Microsoft took a big hit,
yeah.
And that issue was the mandatory requirement for Windows in computers, a ruling that imposed significant penalties, but now Google is in the hot seat. But, you know, and it's interesting to find someone engaged in a violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. You got to prove that they have a monopoly, and you have to prove that their conduct was exclusionary or predatory. Now, to defend themselves, they can prove that they had a pre-competitive justification. Hey, we are better than you, we're more innovative than you, but the federal court ruled, not really, you have more money than anybody else, because in 2021, you paid $26 billion to Apple to be the exclusive default search engine.
Wow. Some might argue as a business, well, you were successful enough, you had the money to pay. We're sorry other companies did not.
Well, you know, the irony in this is, so the numbers, and I think the judge kind of had the rationale, the judge in his 220-page ruling said there is no direct evidence, but a lot of circumstantial evidence. Google controls 90% of the computer search engine default agreements, 95% of smartphones.
Wow. Okay, we're almost out of time. Have to ask you, what about punishment?
Wow. Can you spank an 800-pound gorilla with limited resources on the wrist with a fine?
Yeah.
Possibilities could be a fine, but you'd really have to hit Google hard. You could divest them from having exclusive agreements. But, you know, Lori, ironically, the Sherman Antitrust Act was implemented by Congress to help the consumer. This, in the long run, may hurt the consumer because the consumers aren't jumping up and down. It's virtually every state in the Department of Justice, including Tennessee, and it's all over the money.
All right. In the meantime, we'll still be Googling, yes?
I'll see you from Google Earth.
Okay.